Do you know someone that drinks coffee on a daily basis? It is important to know the effects that coffee can have on your body and brain. For the most part, the effects on your body and brain come from the caffeine in coffee. So we will first be looking at the background of coffee, second, about the effects on your body, and third, about the effects it has on your brain. So let's begin by looking at some of the history behind coffee. So, according to the author of A Brief History of American Coffee Culture, coffee was brought to America by the British in the 17th century. Coffee houses weren't very popular in America until the Boston Tea Party in 1773, and that's when America's coffee culture was changed forever. The revolt against King George III was created, and the switch from tea to coffee was started. Traders and travelers carried seeds to new places, and coffee trees were planted everywhere. And so by the 18th century, coffee had become one of the world's most profitable merchandise. So consumption really increased from the U.S. During the Civil War, and businessmen wanted a way to profit from it. So in 1864, brothers John and Charles Arbuckle began selling roasted coffee by the pound to cowboys in the West, and James Folger, who sold coffee to gold miners in California. Lots of other popular coffee brands quickly followed. So Starbucks opened in Seattle in 1971. Starbucks made coffee available to people everywhere in America. Today, the coffee revolution continues to grow. Personally owned coffee shops show now that making these drinks is an artistic craft, like wine or beer, where the beans are grown, how they're roasted, and brewing processes are all looked at closely. These coffee expertise is growing to be popular in the younger generations. Now that we have learned about some of the key factors behind coffee, let's move on to how coffee affects our bodies. So, according to an article on Self called What Drinking Coffee Actually Does to Your Body, the caffeine enters your bloodstream and quickly finds its way to the brain, where it boosts your alertness and energy. It can take only 10 minutes after drinking coffee for the caffeine to kick in. The increased brain activity creates the release of adrenaline, which is what gives you that burst of energy and focus with your morning cup of joe. Studies also have connected caffeine consumption to a boost in your memory. Drinking too much coffee can cause insomnia. If you have caffeine later in the day, it can actually predispose you to develop insomnia or make it worse if you already have it. So, Rachel Salas, MD, and the Associate Professor of Neurology at Johns Hopkins Medicine, who specializes in sleep medicine, told Self, if you're prone to developing insomnia, a habit to coffee can trigger it. Coffee is helpful when you're tired, but it's not going to give you more energy in the long run. With most people, caffeine's half-life is about 4 to 6 hours. And in about 6 hours, the amount of caffeine in your blood will reduce by about 50%. So if you drink 200 milligrams, a 200 milligram cup at 9 a.m., by 3 p.m., you'll have 100 milligrams left. How quickly you metabolize caffeine depends on your individual body chemistry and genetics. So drinking large amounts of coffee can cause high blood pressure and an increased heart rate. Studies have shown that coffee increases heart rate because of caffeine's impact on hormones and neurotransmitters. But drinking coffee in moderation, which is about 3 cups per day, should have a noticeable effect on a healthy adult. Shouldn't have a noticeable effect. According to the Mayo Clinic, some daily drinkers have a higher blood pressure, while others have a tolerance and are not affected in the long run. There isn't a clear explanation why caffeine causes an increase in blood pressure, but it's most likely because of the increased adrenaline and other hormonal reactions. So after telling you about coffee, how coffee can affect your body, let's take a look at how coffee affects your brain. So according to Anthony Domenico from CNET, on a chemical level, caffeine is similar to adenosine, a chemical that makes you sleepy. When you drink coffee, the caffeine binds to the brain's adenosine receptors, preventing the chemical from binding with the receptors that make you tired. So those who regularly drink coffee in the large amounts, the brain develops more adenosine receptors, so it takes more coffee to keep you awake. That also explains why you feel so exhausted, why you try to when you try to wean yourself off coffee. So, caffeine also builds up adrenaline supply, which increases your heart rate, gets your blood pumping, and opens up your airways. Caffeine also prevents dopamine from getting absorbed into your system, which leaves the happy chemical hanging around in your brain longer. On the downside, this dopamine effect is also what makes coffee so addictive. So keep that in mind the next time you're eyeing that second or maybe 10th cup. So today we first looked at the background of coffee, second about the effects it had on your body, and third about the effects it has on your mind. Coffee can have many effects on your brain and body. Now you can tell that person you know that drinks coffee on a daily basis what they're actually doing to themselves with every cup of coffee they drink.